after the fight, um, at the drugstore, and he leaves. They walk out together. The airman says to the Navy man, um, he says, go ask her to marry you, get married, enjoy your life. He walks home. Um, Navy man looks over at her house. They're next door neighbors. He looks over at her house. It's like he's about to, but then he doesn't. It's like he remembers. Oh, I would be too much of a burden. I'm no good for anybody. She'd be stuck with me. And so then later in the movie, the scene, this is the one I thought you were talking about, by the way. Yeah, he goes downstairs, gets some milk. She knocks on the door. He goes over, and basically, her parents are like, he's not going to come around. You need to go live with your aunt on a farm or something like that. Move on, because he's not going to. Which I don't think they were being mean. I think they were seeing that he was stuck and might not ever move on. And she was determined that if possible, she was going to help him move on.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so at first she's like, yeah, that's probably a good idea. You should move on. And she's like, so hurt. And she's like, do you want me to move on? And so they have some dialogue, and he's like, all right, well, I'll show you. So they go upstairs. Um, uh, he has figured out a way to both take off his prosthetic arms. And that's when the reveal is, for the very first time, that it is not a Hollywood stunt.
Right.
That the man really, the man playing the character, didn't have arms from about here down. He had elbows.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't know that until that scene. And so that was another, you know, gut punch, that it was real for him, for the guy playing him. And then, he couldn't button up his pajama shirt. They all wore like white t-shirts, but he couldn't button up his pajamas all the way up, and so she did it for him. I mean, he couldn't do it at all because he had already taken off his prosthetic. And so yeah, um he was like, so now you've seen. um and he kind of goes on a bit of a monologue about how uh helpless he feels once he no longer has. um
Pay no attention.
those on. I hear you.
No attention.
And he's like, so that's where I'm at. This is who I am. And he says, before she can say anything, he's like, I know you have no words. That's okay. And she's like, no, actually I do. I love you. That's what I've been trying to tell you. And so there's like a relief that comes over him. And it's interesting also, just from a director point of view, when they choose to show people's faces,
mm-hmm.
and when they don't. Sometimes you don't see the person's response from front of the face. There's a lot of wide shots, and it's just like you see the other person responding to them in their response. That's just something, from a directorial standpoint, very intentional the way they do that. And when we get to the very ending wedding scene, I want to bring that back up, the direction that they chose to do there. But that scene, you wanna comment on that?
That is that scene right there. That is the emotional core of the film, because it's hard to comment on that scene. It's just,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what it is, and I know I've said oh, there's a lot of the cast is really good, and the cast is really good, but there is something about, I knew her name earlier today, it's not coming to me right now. I'll remember it down the line. The actress who plays Wilma.
Yeah.
Because this was not the first movie I'd seen her in.
Okay.
But it's just that she comes across as so genuine, so sincere,
So kind.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, like I said, I just remember squalling like a baby at that scene. And as y'all can tell, I can't even hear people talk about the scene without getting a little teary-eyed.
And if y'all have seen the movie, y'all know why.
It's one of those scenes that like words almost don't do it justice.
Right.
But I do love the fact, like you said, because I think before that, I could be wrong, because again, it's been a while, and the movie, the emotions have stuck with me more than a play-by-play. I don't think you really ever, like, you see the scene where he punches his hands through the glass, but you don't really see him super vulnerable until after she's walked out, and it just closes in on his face and he's weeping.
Gracious. It's dark in the room, but they've got that moonlight shining on his face. And he's so happy. But in a million years, he never thought that she would still view him as him instead of his now, the way he looked at it, like such a severe disability that no one would want to be with him anymore.
And which is so funny, because through the whole film you can tell she is desperately trying to reach out to him. If memory serves, the scene where he's about to walk up to her house and he turns and walks off, it either like cuts to the inside of her window or it shows that there's a light on the house. I don't quite remember, but I remember it distinctly shows that she was watching him through her window.
Yeah, it's crazy. So the airman, he got married and shipped out pretty much right away. We learned that at the beginning of the film. The army man, he'd been married to his wife for 20 plus years. And then the Navy man had, of course, was single, but he wanted to marry Wilma. And so these three different guys in three different situations, as far as the romance, was really a cool contrast, and they were able to use those three situations to really emphasize all kinds of different people who had come back from the war. You know, of course, the army man had kids,
Mhm.
who were, you know, of course, his daughter was a young adult. Um, and I don't know how old the son is because he disappeared. We just know he was in school.
Yeah.
But yeah, just their different lives they were living. And how each of their when they went off to war, each of their uh, loves that they were leaving were so different too.
Mhm. It's understated in the film, which I love the fact that there's a lot of this film that it doesn't exactly throw it in your face. It's just like it's there if you pay attention.
Mm,
Amidst all of this whole, oh no, can I settle? Will this work? Can I get back into play? There's never any question that the airman, Al, and his wife, Millie, like they settle back and they pick up right where they left off.
yep.
Like the scene where he's at, because he's a banker or a well, person. He works with money. And there's a
Yeah.
scene where he's at this banquet, and he's like, "I'm going to get a drink." She's like, "Don't. You remember what happens when you drink." And if you
Right.
notice, as he's talking and drinking, she's got a fork or a knife, and she's cutting little indentations into the tablecloth for each drink he takes.
Yeah. She's looking out for him.
Mm-hmm. And then that's also a beautiful scene where oh, here's the war hero, stand up, make a
Mm,
speech. And even drunk, he manages to trap those people into helping the soldiers where they wouldn't before.
yeah, man. Yeah. And you could tell that she was nervous when he first started talking.
Mm-hmm.
And he even says that he can sum up how he feels about, you know, the way things have been handled before in one word. And then he looks over at her and she's got those wide eyes and he's like he like took her body language's advice. And he said, but my wife doesn't want me to do that. So what I will say, her face, she's like, man.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I mean, I'll just go out and say it. Myrna Loy is a wonderful actress. I know a lot of people nowadays don't know who she is because the cultural zeitgeist has moved so much since the 30s and the 40s, but she is just a phenomenal actress.
I don't know if I've seen her in anything else, but
You have.
I have what
She was Nora in The Thin Man.
she was.
That was yes.
Wow, she is a great actress because she's totally different.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can tell the show's not scripted. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing.
I guess I should know that. Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you've seen The Thin Man and then watched this movie, man, I was so caught up in the characters, like I've already said.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, there's a 12-year gap between The Thin Man and Best Years of Our Lives.
Yeah, but that I don't think that's what did it. I think it was just that it was like being a fly on the wall in this movie, watching real people react real ways that I wasn't thinking about. Oh, I wonder who these actors are. And until the end, I was watching the credits.
I'm super glad I didn't make the statement I thought about making of like, Frederick March does a wonderful job as the soldier, as Al, but I would love to have seen how William Powell did in the role because that would have made no sense.
Not to me.
without the context.
Right. Not to me, not at that point. But yeah, he could have done it great too. I really, I don't know if I would have changed anything about this movie,
no.
but that would have been interesting. Like you said, it would have been interesting.
So I mean that's generally my
Like,
takeaway in any film where um, either of them plays one half of a married couple that's not the other. My brain always wants to like go and put them in there.
that's because you said they made so many movies together, and that people even thought that they were married in real life, just because they made they had such good chemistry on screen.
But I mean, that being said, I don't want to make it sound like, I'm saying, oh, well, William Powell would have done a better job.
No, I didn't take it that way.
Frederick March was amazing in this film.
Oh yeah, yeah. But when you know that actress how well she works with another actor, your mind goes there, right? Yeah. You can't help it. But yeah, that's wild. She is a great actress. That's great. Let's talk about the airman's wife.
All right.
So he had left, went to war. They had just been married for a brief amount of time. I think they say specifically, like if it was like barely 2 weeks, something like that. And he gets home. He can't find her right off the bat because she's working nights at a nightclub to keep money, as well as the money that he's sending back from the war. And so that's how he meets up again with the two other guys that originally took the plane ride. They all wind up back at the original, or at the bar. And so he trying to find her. He can't. He spends the night at the Army man's house. Like you said, that's where we see his first episode of PTSD,
which is counterpointed wonderfully with again another comedic scene of him waking up, no clue where he is. He got drunk the night before,
hammered.
Like he's walking and he's clearly trying to find the bathroom. And he opens the door of the closet and then just stares at it, like the wheels are still trying to crank.
Yep.
He just closes the door.
Yep. And the so the airman is staying at the Army man's house. The Army man's daughter comes in to get something out of the room. As she's leaving, he wakes up and she's like, I know what you're going to say. Where are you? Or where am I? And she said, don't worry. We'll tell you later. Because she could see on his face, he was like, what is going on? And it's even after that, he's like trying to figure out, where am I still?
And what's really neat about that scene is she had been the one to discover him having the PTSD the night before. And so it's basically stated in the film, he thanks her for not bringing it up because, she never mentioned it. It's not like, oh, yeah, I know what happened last night. It's like, yeah, I know. You don't know where you are. Just stay there. We'll explain.
Yeah. She continued to treat him kind. She wasn't like, oh man, there's something wrong with that guy. Or she pitied him in a negative way. She just treated him like a person. She was like, take it easy. I know you don't know where you're at. You're fine. We'll figure it out later. Yeah, and he does. When she drives him back to to his apartment where his wife is, he thanks her, for helping him get out of that dream. Because she was, of course, sleeping in the living room. She heard him, yelling about engines on fire and things like that. And she comes in, helps him get through it. And he thanked her for not only helping him, but not mentioning it. And that was, he really appreciated that. And then he goes home. He sees his wife for the first time. They're thrilled to see each other. And then we start to realize she's like one of the only real antagonists of the film. Would you agree with that, or is there more than one?
I'd say she's the main central antagonist. Sounds weird to say in a film like this. She's the main opposing force through most of the film that stays through most of the film. You'll have little things that pop up, like the guy who gets punched through the glass counter.
There's that, yeah.
And then it really seems to be the airman who draws most of the antagonism through the film.
Yeah.
Because there's also the pipsqueak who was working under him.
Oh, yeah.
And then ends up working above him and is lording it over him. It's
yeah, so him coming back, he had a lot of problems with not being treated with respect.
Right. And I think it's sort of either hinted or outright stated that she had an affair while he was overseas.
It was alluded to, and that it did happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's obvious that that was the case. And then she turns it on him, and she's like, "Well, what were you doing in Paris?" And
liberating the French. Not getting into history memes.
Yeah, but it's hard not to when we're talking WW2. Yeah. But yeah, instead of saying,
we might have French viewers. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll be having you explaining the different battles to me here in a second. So wait, what podcast is this?
Yeah, I was like, wait, hang on.
History with Ellis 101. But she doesn't really deny anything. She's just doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
And man, she's all about material things. She even tells she says in that one scene with the captain's daughter when they're by themselves, she's like, love may or may not come later. What's important is that you get someone who's rich.
And I remember watching that scene. I'm going, just shove her through the mirror. Sure, it would completely dovetail the movie, completely derail everything, but just push her through.
The what? Say that a little louder.
No, sorry. I was that whole scene where she's like, "Oh yeah, he did love might come later, money first." It's like, character played by Teresa Wright. You could just, y'all are close enough. You could just shove her into the mirror.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like,
and then
whoa.
Yeah. She comes home. I'm going to be a homewrecker. It's like, apparently we're on the same page here.
Yeah, that was another thing that was difficult. Not everything was super black and white. Well, right. Everything was not black and white. Everything was like life, which is difficult.
But the thing is, it's not like a film nowadays where it might have, run with that whole homewrecker angle. She brings it up, and both of the parents are like, honey, think about this for longer than 5 minutes, please.
Mm,
Let's walk through what's going to happen here.
yeah. And she didn't just immediately rebel against them.
Mm-hmm.
And she, you know, from my watching of it, she kind of came to her senses that that would not be the right thing to do.
Right.
Even though she saw the hideous character of the wife, who she really was, in and didn't really try to hide even from her husband.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just because she was bad didn't mean that the daughter should also be bad.
Right.
But yeah, when she brought that up, I was like, oh man, this is which way are they going with this film? He's married. Clearly, movies back then normally end on a positive note.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, the whole time I was watching this, I was like, I don't know if one of them is going to commit suicide
Mm-hmm.
or if they're going to get married and live happily ever after. Like, I never knew. And both of those things were on my mind for all three of them.
Mm-hmm.
Of the guys were like, are they, I mean, obviously not the army man getting married, but you know what I mean? Like, either it's going to be really good or really, really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was kind of like, okay, sometimes it's really bad, sometimes it's really good. And like I said, it was a roller coaster.
And it was a happy ending, but it's a happy ending that it felt so earned because everything they've been through.
Yeah. And I was relieved when it was the wives of the airman, you know, the one that I said was such a protagonist, that it was her idea for the divorce.
Mm-hmm.
It was terrible. They had me pulling for a divorce. Good grief. But they said, yeah, when she was like, yeah, I am awful. I'm gonna be awful, and I'm gonna divorce you.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, at least these other two characters don't have to be awful people.
Right.
And I guess that's what it was. I didn't want either of them being terrible people, or the airman wound up killing himself.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, several times in the movie, there never for the army man did I think that.
Mm-hmm.
Because he had his wife, and she was a pillar for him, as well as the rest of his family.
His daughter and magically disappearing son.
The disappearing son act. Yeah, I never thought that about him, but the other two, I was like, I don't know where this is headed, because they suffered.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, a happy ending was well earned, because it wasn't magically everything fell into place.
Right.
Things did fall into place, but not without trials.
And it's interesting that you mentioned those are the two that suffered. And like I said, they're the ones that formed that sort of that brotherly bond.
Yep. Very true. Very true.
Because the airman doesn't hesitate a second when he sees that the Navy guy is being bullied. He jumps the counter, confronts the man, and then decks him.
Yeah. And like, also, this was just something that made me laugh. So the scene was so powerful, but then also when he punched the guy, it's like he had superhuman strength.
Mhm.
He was like, bap, and the guy flies through the counter, breaks everything, and knocks into the floor. It's like, whoa, this guy's also Superman. That's cool.
Well, they actually sped up the film a little
Oh,
during
really?
that
That
time
that that may have been part of what made it look like just so. Whoa, this
because
guy's the
because
strongest.
they wanted to give it that sort of punch, pun
Yeah,
unintended. So they did
yeah.
speed up the film a little. I discovered that today.
Okay, okay. Yeah. Well, I don't think they were doing it for humorous purposes, but for me, I was just like, whoa, don't mess with this guy.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, they both suffered. They both were had different but uneasy relationships with um their loves.
Mhm.
But then obviously the airman's um wife did not love him.
Mhm.
Um, and was just cruel, very cruel.
Mhm.
And knowing that he had PTSD and knowing that, um, he was getting hammered at work, like you said, by to quote you, Pipsqueak,
Mhm.
who used to work for him, but now he had to work for that guy, and that guy was like very arrogant about it, and like, you need to learn how to pronounce these perfumes and things like that. He was getting hammered from all sides, and his wife was just the person that he should have been able to count on. Was just, yeah, to me, the worst of his problems.
Mhm.
Of course, not a grounds to divorce someone just because they're a bad person. Um, but yeah, later, her um, infidelity is brought to light. Not explicitly said,
Yeah.
but even then, it was her idea to uh, leave him.
I think that was a really smart thing on the, part of the director and the screenwriter to have her be the one to, sort of initiate the divorce.
Yeah, 100%. And it wasn't like, oh, we need to make her be the bad guy so that these other two people can get together.
Mhm.
No, she was like that from the beginning.
Oh yeah.
No, it was not unexpected that when she did say it.
Mhm.
Um, Now everything in the movie. Let me back up, and I'm holding to my guns that everything in the movie was unexpected, as far as I didn't know what was coming next. But when she said that, I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
So that's what I mean by it. It was not unexpected because that's just who she was. She was just uh, uh, one person, one thing to another. She like, materialistic, making fun of how much he made,
Yeah.
all those things.
And I love, going back to talking about the Airman story, I love how it concludes.
Oh man,
Not just the getting married, but this is the guy who struggled with getting a job that pays well, that he feels respected, that he feels like, that's in his skill set.
mm,
And then he runs into the guy, he's found that graveyard of old planes, which him walking with that overhead shot, beautiful.
wow, wow,
Um, but and he climbs into the little the tail bomber, the gunners, whichever part of the plane it was. He's sitting there, and the guy comes out and fusses at him, and then offers him a job.
Right.
Breaking down these planes to make homes.
Yeah, yeah.
And because this is the guy, like I said, that through the entire film has just sort of he's I'm not going to say he struggled the most because you do have the Navy man, but in ways he's had the hardest time because the Navy man didn't want to accept it. He had loving parents and a
Mm-hmm.
loving girlfriend. He was just closed off from them.
Right.
Um, the airman did not have a loving wife, and from the one scene you sort of see them in, there's sort of a distance between himself and between the airman and his dad.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Because if memory serves, he spends most of that scene communicating with his stepmother.
Yeah. I guess stepmother. He calls her by her first name,
Yeah,
right?
right.
I don't know if they explicitly say that, but I kind of figured that as well. He calls him Pop.
Hmm.
Yeah, you can tell that they love each other, but there's not like a openness of emotions between them.
Right. So by the end of the film, you know, he's got it's basically all but stated he and the airman's he and the soldier's daughter are getting married or are going to get married.
Right.
So he's got a loving wife this time,
Exactly.
um, like and a whole new family. Not to say anything against his old one, but he's got the soldier and his wife. Like I said, they basically adopted both of them.
Right. Yeah. For sure. And
And
well, just and him being the best man
mhm.
at the Navy men's wedding.
I know you said you wanted to talk about the wedding.
Yeah. Yeah. So so um the Navy man walks into the bar
Mhm.
earlier on, and you've got the dad, and you've got the airman
Mhm.
at the table, and they're talking.
Mhm.
That's an intense scene, because uh, the dad, who is from the army, is telling the airman, I'm gonna do everything in my power to keep you away from my daughter,
Mhm.
because the guy was married.
Yeah.
He didn't want her getting mixed up in all that. And so, out of respect, the the airman, he
Mhm.
went and called her there right then and said it was over.
Mhm.
Um, but what I'm saying is, the Navy guy came in. He's like, "Hey, what's going on?" And they both don't tell him about it.
Mhm.
So he doesn't know that there's that friction there for the whole movie.
Mhm.
Um, he knows something is up, but they're kind of keeping him out of it. They don't want him to take a side or feel um you know ostracized even more one way or the other. Um, so when he is getting married at the end, the Navy man, and if you've seen the movie, you know who we're talking about: Navy man, Army man, and airman.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's clear in the movie.
Yeah.
So um, just because I can't remember each of their names, exactly, we're using the pronouns of their military branch.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, when he's getting married, uh, he uh, the airman is his best man. The brother so to speak, as you've said.
Mhm.
And then he invites the family that took care of him, and that he's still in love with the daughter, but he's just done with everything at that point. Do you want to talk about the picture scene where he tears up the picture?
You can go ahead. Words are my brain's a little fuzzy on that. See,
All right.
my brain's a little fuzzy in general, but
Hey, I've got some of that myself. It's not really a scene. It's just something that happens right after his wife says that she's going to divorce him. She leaves. He folds the picture of uh, of his wife, and when they went out on the town, he folds that picture in half. He tears off the part with his wife and that other guy,
Mhm.
and it's just the woman that he loves and himself. But then he tears that picture up too,
Mhm.
of them two, because he just wants to leave. And so yeah, as he's about to leave, he gets offered the job, like you said, so he stays local. He's the best man of the Navyman's wedding. So the family, minus the brother, gets invited to the wedding,
That poor brother.
which is really, when you mentioned that, that was the scene that popped into my mind. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, he wasn't even at the wedding. Like some of the
I
some of
like to
the other,
imagine. I like to
yeah,
imagine in all the scenes they're in, he's just standing slightly out of frame,
yeah,
just there, but like not focused on.
yeah. You just can't see him.
Mhm.
But out of all the scenes in the movie where he would be missed,
Mhm.
that's the one that makes the least amount of sense of him not being there. The rest, okay,
Yeah.
he's just not really around. Maybe he's out hot rodding or whatever. But that one is just like, oh, since you mentioned it, I was like, yeah, he did disappear
I, I
because he
I
wasn't
think
there.
I think that was the exact scene that I sat up and went, "Wait a minute, where's the brother?"
I was way too wrapped up in it. I didn't even
Yeah.
notice. Um, but yeah, so the airman and the army guy's daughter, who they love each other, but they haven't seen each other since the phone call in the bar. And that's what I was getting back to, is he broke it off with the phone call of the bar. They have not seen each other since. They see each other at the wedding. Um, she has heard, I mean, time has gone by since the divorce. We don't know how much time. You can tell in certain parts of the movie that time has passed,
Mhm.
but that's not the point of the story. It's just that some time has passed. It's not years, but he had at the wedding, he had been working for the company for a while, that was disassembling the planes and making them into homes. Um, and so they see each other from across the room. They talk a little bit, but then as the airman, no, the Navy man is getting married, they keep looking at each other, and like there's just so much good camera work. Like
Mhm.
sometimes you don't see their faces at the same time, but that emotion of both of them is there the whole scene. That's where all of that was coming around to, was the fact that all of their history, and that you didn't need to see both of their faces or a cut back and forth
Right.
really fast. It was just, again, wide angles, and every so often he would turn away from kind of the wedding party and look at her, and she was like tearing up. And then as they conclude the ceremony, which again was just so brilliantly done, they went through a full ceremony. If that guy was ordained, they really did get married because he said everything. Like they need to be sure because they went through the whole thing, and it was so good and important for the Navy man and the woman that he was marrying, Wilma.
Kathy O'Donnell. That was her actress name. Sorry. Kathy
Say again?
O'Donnell.
Kathy
O'Donnell. I told
O'Donnell.
coming to me.
It happened.
Proceed.
It happened.
My brain finally caught up.
I'm glad you found it. Yeah, because we talked a lot about her just genuineness and like believability that's yeah. She brought so much to it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was such an important scene, obviously for them because they're getting married, and all the hardships that they went through to get to there. And then meanwhile, the airmen still going through a hardship during the ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, they're not letting up. This is supposed to be the happy scene. No, they're still throwing punches. I'm like, come on. What is going on? And at this point, I'm happy for the Navy guy, big time. This is like the culmination of the happy ending of his story arc. But then you still got them two there during that scene. I was like, I didn't know if she'd run out. And it would just end, or if afterwards they would go up and talk. But pretty much, so the angle is you see the back of his head and you see the wedding party that's facing the preacher.
Mm-hmm.
And you see her, and then after the wedding, your man and wife, everybody moves except her. She stays, and it holds that frame. She stays. He stays standing there, looking at her, but you only see her face.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I mean. The whole movie, they keep doing things like this, and I'm not really observant when it comes to director stuff. But this movie, it was like, on top of all of everything we've mentioned, even the directorial skills, it could be its own character
Mm-hmm.
in the movie. That's for somebody like me to notice, it's significant. And then he that the good is going on there. He then walks away from the wedding party, even though he's the best man. He's zoned out. He's got a beeline for the lady of his dreams, and walks over. I don't even remember what they said. I just watched the movie. I was too caught up. Essentially, yeah, they kiss, and okay, they're gonna be they get married and live happily ever after.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the cinematography, if I may use such a big word for me, the cinematography in that scene, and there's it's all through the movie, but it's just super significant there. Had me so engaged. And of course, the whole backstory did its work, putting in the time. And that's why the movie's worth watching too, even though it's long. Every scene feels like it's necessary. Like there's no deleted scenes. There's nothing you could take out, I feel like. Because the payoff is so earned.
You know me, I like my little funny facts. During the wedding scene, I don't know
Yeah.
if you noticed or not, when he's giving his vows, the Navy man, like, gets words confused, flips some words around.
Yeah. I did notice one time that happened.
That was because the actor fluffed his line.
I wondered. Is that
And
right? Okay.
Yeah, and the director's like, no. You know, they're like, do we stop? And the director's like, no, this is genuine. This is genuine. You know, this feels real. We keep this in. Go.
Man, that's smart.
Mm-hmm.
See, I there was one thing I can't remember. It was like I'll just say it's death do us part. He said like death until we depart.
Mm-hmm.
It was something like that. He didn't say it just right. It was something, and I was like, oh, I wonder if. And I was like, no, they probably did that on purpose.
Mm-hmm. No,
And
it was.
I couldn't figure it out. But
Right.
you're saying
Yeah,
saying that it was both, that he messed up for real,
Mm-hmm.
but they on purpose left it in
Mhm.
because it was so good.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Oh.
No, I get why it won Best Picture.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get why people don't know about this movie.
No, I'll tell you why, because it's black and white, and black and white movies those are grandparent movies. We don't watch those. Which is what this podcast is here for, and why we have talked about this movie for an hour and a half.
Almost as long as the movie.
We have discussed this movie for half of this movie's runtime. And unless you have anything else, I think we've covered this movie stem to stern.
I think we have. Yeah. And if people have watched it as we suggested, you get it.
Mm-hmm. You understand why talking about it for this long was important.
Yeah.
Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. The next episode will be much shorter and much lighter, and there will be spoilers back on. I think what we're due for now is some comedy.
Let's do that. Let's do some comedy. I need to take a breath.
You do. So next week we will be covering Bringing Up Baby.
Bringing Up Baby.
Yes. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for sticking with us for this long, and we thoroughly hope you enjoyed the picture. I say that like I directed the picture. It doesn't matter. We hope you enjoyed it anyway.
That's right.
Good night, ladies.
And what is it you always say?
I have nothing but movies and time. Lots and lots of movies and time.